What's up, everybody? Heroes 13 here, back with another video. So at the time of this recording, I've actually made two videos, but I haven't put them out yet. One of the videos I made was titled, what if there was an entire country full of people with superpowers? And by full of people, I mean every single person, from the teachers, students, kids, the unemployed, the homeless, the leaders, all of that. So this is going to be a part two to the first video, the part one I made. And like I said, I haven't posted it yet, but when I post it, I'm going to make sure to post the one that's part one first, and I'll label it part one. So yeah, I'm not going to set up the scenario too much, because it's the same as that video. So cheap plug, you can always go back and watch that video, or at least the first, I don't know, I kind of ramble, so maybe about first 5 minutes of it. But anyway, what if everyone in the world, and what if there was an entire country full of people who had superpowers? Part two. The reason I'm doing this is because in part one, while I did talk about some of the more interesting dynamics that could happen, I didn't really go into enough detail. Like, I wasn't satisfied with how detailed I wanted to do. Like, there's still some stuff that I could have talked about, but I didn't want the video to be too long. Spoiler alert, it is 15 minutes, and this one is about 18 minutes. So anyway, so we're gonna do that here now. So there's an entire country full of people with powers, right? The country isn't as large as America or China, but it's bigger than, it's about the size of France. Okay, it's the size of Europe. Okay, well, no. Okay, no. I remember from the first episode, I said it's about half of America's size, and it's got a population of around 100 to 300 million. I don't remember which one I said. Well, no, I think I said 60 to 90 million. And a population from 60 to 100 million. Okay. One thing I did in the first video was I kind of talked about different tiers of powers. Like, are we talking about people who got powers on the level of the supers from The Boys from Amazon, or are we talking about people on the level of MCU and DCU? So let me do this, right? We are speaking. We're going to use power levels from The Boys. So there's going to be no, because it makes it a little bit more realistic or a little more grounded. There's no Sentry, there's no Captain Marvel, people who's faster than light, can, travel into space, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of The Boys, right, the weakest hero has the strength, or the weakest person, the weakest person in the country, like everyone has strength and durability on the level of Queen Maeve. All right, that makes it fair. That makes it fair. But some people also have, and they all have different types of abilities, but they all have a regenerative healing factor. Not really on Deadpool's level. Some of them have a greater healing factor than others. And there's a few with, let me take that. There's a few with Deadpool style healing or Wolverine style, but only a few. Most of them don't. Okay. Like I said, they all have they all have strength and durability. Well, even the weakest among them have strength and durability on par with Queen Maeve. Some of them are more durable, some of them are stronger. And then they have various abilities like heat vision, teleportation, invisibility, yada, yada, yada. But there's no reality warping. That's the one power I'm going to take out. Well, so one thing that's going to be interesting, because I talked about how in the first video, I said how they would be the most exalted group on the planet. Like, everyone would want to deal with them in some way, shape, or form. Some good, some bad. And that is true. However, I want to talk more about the actual citizens of that country, right? I didn't go too deep into that in the first video. So what are the people like? Are they, like I said, these are the only people with superpowers, right? There might be a few who have powers outside outside the country due to them, like, going on. Well, we'll save that for later, right? Are these people, so like I said, they're the only people with superpowers. Are they arrogant? Do they consider themselves to be a master race type thing? Or are they humble? Or do they just want to live peaceful and tranquil lives, right? Depending on which one, there's a lot of people outside that country who would see them as a master race. But there'll be a lot of people who would hate them for that. People don't like show offs. People don't like arrogance, especially, people who kind of got a hard life. So, poor people and all that. Hey, I'm poor myself, so I say it. But anyway, so, it's part of me feel like I'm so conflicted, right? Because part of me feels like there's not many countries who would willingly go to war with that group of people, especially once they realize just how powerful and just how strong those guys are. Like Queen Maeve was able to stop a speeding armored truck dead in its tracks when it crashed against her. And you have to mind you, those things can take grenades. So I don't know, I don't think these people would be so cocky with their powers that they wouldn't use. Like, I think a lot of them would use guns and stuff simply because they know not every power would be like super powerful or super useful. But if they're arrogant or if they like infringe on people's rights, not people's like if they try to like illegally migrate to countries, which I don't think they would do just for the simple risk because of countries trying to kidnap them to experiment on them. Because I do think a lot of countries, like especially like the bigger, powerful countries like America, Russia, China, I think they would try to launch little campaigns against and capture some of the citizens to try to experiment on them to get powers. You'd have a few Homelander-esque type beings here, though, right? You'd have some Stormfronts, some Soldier Boys, a few hundred of those. You have like maybe a few dozen of the Homelander tier beings. So not many people would willingly want to go to war with that group because Homelander could take a nuke. So, I mean, if these people, like, if they go on, like, let's say they go to, like, they go, what am I trying, on vacation, sorry. They go toward different countries, like, China and all them, and they start just being disrespectful, being rude. A lot of countries, I see some countries ganging up on them, right? There would be a lot of people who wouldn't like that country just off the fact that they are the only people with having powers, especially if they're a black country, but if they're a white country too, because jealousy is rampant. But if they're disrespectful, if they're violent, if they're if they put a bad name out there, a lot of I see a war comes. I see them capturing someone and causing an international incident, and then other beings having to go, like other people from the super powered country having to go try to free them, and a war starts and all that. Again, they've got a few dozen people who can take nukes, so that's kind of bad. But let's say they're not arrogant. Let's say they're humble and they just want to live peaceful lives. Well, nobody's stupid. Well, there are stupid people. I don't think these people would be stupid. They know other countries would want to kind of capture them. I don't think that group would travel much. I think they would just stay in their country. And by the way, speaking of their country, I think they would have the closest thing to a utopia here in the world, right? There are countries, for those of you who don't know, I live in America. If you couldn't have told, we don't have free healthcare and all that. But there are countries that do have free healthcare. There are countries a lot of those countries, even though they have free healthcare, and free education, they do still have their own sets of problems: crime, drug use, homelessness. So if, like, I don't know, like a world where everyone has powers, I think they would genuinely have universal everything. I think there would be universal housing, universal income, universal health care, universal education. Because I see them, I think they would be maybe not the richest, among the richest. The countries would kind of be like two-faced towards them. There would be countries who are scheming to kind of capture some of their citizens and all that, to use them for experiments and things, and try to, because I think the world would want powers. They would try a myriad of ways to get power to their civilians, especially their leaders. But they would also want to keep that country in their good graces, because that could be a powerful and very good ally to have. So, I mean, America sends Israel billions of dollars a year. However you feel about that, yada yada yada. Let's not, hopefully guys don't bring that to the don't argue in the comments. But America, like I said, America gives Israel billions of dollars a year. Heck, I think many countries, like at least I know off rip at least two countries that would try to buy that country. Like it would send them billions and billions of dollars. So finances, I think they would be great. And I actually alluded to this in the first video I made, where I said, even if I think they would be among the richest countries, even if they didn't have many natural resources, just out of the simple fact that people would want to see them. I mean, they could have the greatest tourism industry ever. Now, personally, if superpowers are real, I'm going to be one of them. But if there are people in that country who have, like, if I was in the country, I would be one of the people who, if I was a leader, I wouldn't really have tourism, just because I wouldn't trust the outside world. But, that country could be the greatest tourist destination ever, simply out of the fact that people would want to go and see the people with superpowers. I mean, they would have to have a few attractions, but you know what I mean, right? But they probably will have a few natural resources. So, I mean, that country, as long as that country didn't have corruption, didn't have like greed and corruption from its politicians too much, I don't think at least corruption and greed towards their citizens, I think they would be fine. That place would be like a utopia. Like I said, they would have universal everything. They would be the ire everywhere. The entire world would be jealous of them, especially the citizens in hard-to-do places. And let me backtrack really quickly. And let me explain to you why I don't think they would have why they would have corruption. A lot of African countries are blessed with abundant. Like Africa has the most resources on the planet. Like most of the world's resources come from Africa. Yet Africa is the poorest continent with the poorest countries, with some of the poorest countries. That is due to the fact of corruption, greed, tribalism, and yada, yada, yada. But in a super society, I don't see that happening. Not because the leaders would be any better. Heck, they'd probably be far worse, if I'm being honest. But because no one's going to try to cause too much, make their citizens too unhappy. Because one, their citizens could leave, and that would cause a problem, because eventually they would proliferate in the outside world, and then the outside world could attack them. But simply the fact, like, if the citizens revolt, that would be massive destruction that would take years, if not decades, to build back. So I think every they might have a corrupt politician in their time, but eventually the politician they will realize, no, corruption doesn't work here, not with these people. Now, they would do like shady stuff to other countries, like they might join like shadow wars and all that, but that's neither here nor there. Well, actually, yeah, it is here or there. Because I see a couple countries like right now, Russia's invading Ukraine. I could see a country like that, trying to hire some of the super people to either defend or help defend against an invading army, or help conquer a place, like conscripts and all that. So, I mean, we saw Russia send, import in 10,000 something new North Korean soldiers. I could see if the king was friendly enough, or if the super society was friendly enough to like a country like Russia, they might send some soldiers over there. That army would be unmatched, though. Even if everyone in the army didn't, like I said, You got a dozen Homelander level beings, a few hundred Stormfront, no, a few more dozen Stormfront level being, and a few hundred Soldier Boy level beings. The rest are kind of like are either the weakest person is at Queen Maeve level. The rest are kind of like they flounder around. Like it varies, right? They don't have great strength and durability, but not many would have actual good combat power, so they would use guns. But even still, that would still be the most powerful army. Um, they might not. They might not have to actually have to have an army though. So it seems like everybody in the country would be soldiers there. Um, I'm gonna operate on blind. Like if they're arrogant, if they're disrespectful, the entire world might gang up on them. I don't think a country like that could beat every country in the world. But if every country in the world did attack them, it would be like a massive battle. It would be hectic. But yeah, another thing, and actually, hang on. All right, sorry. Yeah, I almost ran out of space. So I'm really into this. Like I said, yeah, I don't think many, like even if every country attacked them, like they would send out people who would have powers, like single people who would be strong enough to destroy entire city blocks in a matter of seconds. So no country would come out unscathed. So every country would prefer not to fight them. So let's say, let's just assume they aren't arrogant. Let's just say they stick to their lives, right? Well, what's their policy like? One thing that I'm interested about is their policy towards the outside world. And I've actually changed my mind. Screw saying the weak, like everyone has strength and durability on par with Homelander. And a few people have powers or like Homelander plus, like say Homelander plus Soldier Boy or Homelander plus Stormfront. Oh no, that's kind of unfair. Look, now go back to what either one really doesn't matter. But yeah, never mind. Take that back. We use the same powers that I'm saying. Everyone, the weakest person there has strength and durability on par with Queen Maeve because she's pretty strong in it of herself. But yeah. So one thing before I run out of time because I'm not going to extend the video anymore. I want to talk about their political system. That is very interesting. Now, I'm not going to get into politics, but like, what kind of system of governance do they have? Do they have a monarchy? Do they have a dictatorship? Are they communists? Are they socialists? Are they democratic, right? If they're democratic, there's going to be election. Well, really any of them. There's going to, well, no, really more so democratic, but kind of any of them. This country would have to ward off election interferences. This country would not be left alone. There would be people who, let's say they did have a place of good natural resources like oil or diamonds, or let's say I'm sure there's a lot of them who would be able to make water. Water, because of how hot the planet is getting, water is going to be an extremely important an extremely important resource. I mean, that could be the most vital country on the face of the earth. So there would be people who would try to get people into power who align with with their country and in their point of view, like Russia, election interference and all that. So it really determined. Like, I think this country would also kind of have to be they would have to be very closed off. I mean, they might allow some tourism in, but I don't see very much because I don't think they would trust people. Hey, the rich don't trust the poor, so why would the powered trust the non-powered? That's kind of where I'm coming from. And like I said, let's say it was a country full of black people, right? Black people from America, whatnot. Given our history, a lot of us probably wouldn't trust, I'm not going to go that far, but just know that there might be some trust issues there. So the country just might, stick to itself and trade when possible. Another thing that might be interesting, and I'm probably going to have to extend the video here, so I need to keep a watch on my time. Refugees. There are refugees from every world. What is wrong with me? My brain is a mush. There's refugees from all the war-torn countries. A lot of them may try to go there, and the United Nations might try to pressure that country into actually letting them in. So it's a lot that goes with this, but Yeah, like I don't know, a country like that, I think they would just kind of more so try to stick to themselves. Maybe they let some people in. Maybe they let some. I don't know, but now elitism and racism would probably be prevalent with that society, though. Now that I think about it, but not because they simply because, like I said, you want proof to what I'm saying? I don't like. Okay, let me take that back. They may not be racist, but a superpowered person might not want to sleep and be with a a regular human. I don't think they would allow much migration because, like I said, I think that country would be a utopia. I think they would have be the closest thing to a utopia. They would have, free health care and all of that. But that's because of their powers. That's their powers allowed them to craft that for themselves. Unpowered people would really have to contribute something to their society. Like let's say, like I said, as I was saying a bit ago, refugees from like war torn countries. I don't see what they would contribute unless they, because like a lot of these people could probably, a lot of the supers could use their powers to do their farming and all that. So a lot of people in that country might not like the refugees or foreigners because they don't feel like they contribute to anything. You might see refugees or foreigners get excluded from social services. So it would be it would be interesting. I generally see like, and like I said, if you want proof as to say, oh, how do you know superpowered people generally probably won't, generally wouldn't sleep with regular powered people? Well, I mean, like I said, the rich don't really sleep and produce with the poor very often. So, I mean, yeah, I know there's some men who go for servant girls, but well, I don't know. A lot of women might get pregnant by supers because a lot of supers would see them as a chance. And, again, I'm gonna just use black people here because I'm black and I know a little bit. I know a lot about my race. I don't know about much about others, but a lot of black men think down there and not with up there. So I'll leave that at that is where that is. But I don't see a lot of the women of the super women getting pregnant. But yeah, that country would likely have to have stringent border entries and border control. It would be a very, it would be a very, that country wouldn't be left alone. That I know for sure. In some way, shape, or form, that country would be bothered because I mean, people would want that. Heck, you might see people try to force them. You might see other countries try to force that country to send their citizens to other countries to live, which would be kind of interesting in and of itself. But again, you do have a couple of Homelander-esque powered beings, and some that's slightly above him. So, Homelander can take nukes. So who knows? But yeah, that's all. I ain't gonna drag this out too much longer. Even though I still really want to talk about this. But yeah, this is Hero 3TN. I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. See you.